What's up, everybody in the YouTube universe? This is Barnon11970, and as always, I thank you guys for watching my video. Alright guys, let's get into it. As we see right now, gold and silver are dipping, and if you saw the video I made a couple of days ago, I was talking about there were going to be some dips. I just predicted in the month of April, that's when you were going to start seeing them. Obviously, I'm staying away from specific dates, because if you don't get it the exact second, some people will get all over you on this. But I still will say, and I'm still going to stick with the fact that gold and silver physically is the best way to go. Now, we're going to talk about other options right now, and we're going to take out and eliminate the emotion. Because if you're emotionally attached to something, you are going to have limited vision. You are not going to be able to see the benefits of other things, and we don't want to have limited vision when it comes to our investment. Because if you base things on emotion, it's very easy for the people that are wealthy, who can buy much larger quantities of things than you can, to profit off of people's ability to have greed. Now, gold and silver is physical. I've talked about this so many different times. It's been tested throughout the test of time. It has been used as real money. If you look at the Constitution, it still states that only gold, silver, and copper can be used as legal money. Anything else is just a token. And there's a quote from J.P. Morgan that actually states that gold is money, everything else is credit. But with that being said, let's look at some alternatives and see if these are things that are worth investing in. Let's start with stocks. Now, stocks, obviously, if you're a trader and you're a professional trader and you know what you're doing, you could make a lot of money with this. Problem with stocks is, if you don't get inside information, it's basically almost a toss of the coin at times. Because if you don't have inside information, you can do as much research as you can, but if you don't get that information, you'll never really know where to hit top and bottom. Now, you can make money with stocks, but there is also, with great reward, comes great risk. Because if you invest in the wrong business, and that company goes under, goes bankrupt, gets taken over with some major scandal, or just, runs out of money, well, you could potentially lose everything. So, stocks, unless you're somebody that has lots of money to play with and knows really everything there is to know about stocks, it's not the greatest investment to put your money in. Let's go with something like, for example, the housing industry. Now, houses are physical. You can go into them and own them. Prices are relatively cheap at this point. But to me, first of all, properties are very bulky. You can't carry them anywhere. You can't relocate them. They're stationary. I really think that the housing industry has a lot further to go down, because we see, for example, one of the reasons why the economy looks so good and the housing market looks potentially good, at least that's what they say in the mainstream media, is the fact that the mortgage companies are holding on to houses, several, probably hundreds of thousands of houses that should already be foreclosed. But they're holding on to them because basically if they foreclosed on every one of them, the exposure of what the economy is really like, would come out. So they're basically holding on to these things in the hopes that, there'll be some kind of recovery in the meantime, and they won't have to dump all these foreclosures onto the mainstream media's news reports saying, there's 200,000 houses that just foreclosed today. That's really going to send the messages of where the economy is. Plus, when you're talking about houses, you're talking about maintenance, you're talking about taxes, you're talking about upkeep. If you're renting that house to somebody, they don't have to pay, and you can't really kick them out. It's not that easy. As a matter of fact, if you know anything about renting, if you've ever rented a house before, the person who's renting the house actually has more rights than the person who owns the house. So that could be very risky. And I really think in the next probably 2 or 3 years, you're going to see prices go down even lower. That's something I would stay away from. And plus, if you don't have a couple of $100,000 to buy property, not exactly an easy thing for the common man to get. All right, let's talk about something like oil and gas. That is definitely a great opportunity to make money. You can see how high the prices are these days. But here's the problem. Unless you own an oil field, you will never have enough to make any kind of significant profits. So this is a game for the big boys. Because basically the average person, again, is not going to be able to afford an oil field. And if you could, you really wouldn't be worried about your financial problems. So something like gas and oil is not something that's really going to help you. All right, let's talk about bonds. Well, if we see what's going on with Cyprus and we see how the government is basically not being the most honorable people in the world or the most fiscally responsible people in the world, I don't think anybody would want to touch something, especially like something that accrues interest of less than 2% over a 30-year period. Basically, you're going to lose out in the end because with the inflation factor involved, you're actually losing money by keeping your money into a bond, some kind of account. So we want to stay away from the banks. All right, let's talk about digital currencies like Bitcoins. Now, Bitcoins, obviously, you could see they are making one hell of a run. I'm not going to deny that. It concerns me. And I see so many people with what I call hindsight foresight, where they are basing everything on where it is now. I mean, nobody was emailing me telling me 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 6 months ago that Bitcoins were going to be this high. And if you watch, actually, Da Vinci J15, he's one of the biggest people that I know of that talks about and has been talking about Bitcoins since they almost started. And he actually made a video. Now, I don't know if he removed it or not because I don't watch his channel. But he made a video when Bitcoins were 47 saying that he doesn't think people should be buying them. They're too high. So for anybody out there that said, I knew this was coming, where it went from 45 to over 100 in the span of 2 to 2.5 weeks, there's no way anybody predicted that. And I actually challenge all of you. If anybody could find 3 other investments in the past 30 years that had this kind of move and still retained that value, I would be shocked if you could find 3. Even 1. So this is one of those kind of riding the waves. This is where the emotion comes in, because this is the new popular thing. This is the new MySpace. Remember MySpace, everybody? Remember when it first came out? How everybody had to be on it? Like, you weren't cool if you didn't have a MySpace page. And there were even songs that people were talking about. There were movies starting to talk about it. Everybody was on MySpace. Well, not that many people, or not as much people at least, are on MySpace. No one's talking about MySpace anymore. Facebook took it over. So if you see something like this, that's basically, if you really boil it down, there were people who invested God knows how many hundreds of thousands of these Bitcoins when they were under $5, under $1, and now are making tons of money. Now, what are these people doing with these Bitcoins? Well, if you see what's going on eBay, they're exchanging them for US dollars. So if you see how many people talk about how much money they're making, they're not doing it to fight the system, as many of them say. Because if you're fighting the system, then why would you exchange your Bitcoins for dollars? Because we all know what's going on with the US dollar, even though it looks like it's being pumped up right now. Now, dollar is not strong. It's just stronger than the other currencies because everybody all at the same time is pretty much printing money like it's going out of style. So Bitcoins, I know people love them. I know this is the wonderful new thing. But you're going to see, once Bitcoins gets out of the range of the average person, because the average person doesn't know about Bitcoins. And if they continue to rise the way they are, by the time it does become very mainstream, the average person will not be able to afford them. So what are they going to do? If they want to get into this, they're going to look for alternative currencies, like the Litecoins and all the other different types of digital currencies, which eventually will overtake Bitcoins, and you'll see it drop as fast as it rose. I know people don't want to hear that. I know people are going to insult me for that. But you know what? As many people that attacked me for saying these things, I wonder how many of them, when they see that this happens, will actually come back onto my video and say, Chris, you were right. Now, I am all for getting rid of the Fed. I am all for sending a message to the governments all over the world that we're not going to take their garbage anymore. If I really thought Bitcoins was a wonderful way to do that and a lasting way to do it, I'd be all in. But it's just not going to be that way. And that's why I'm sticking with the physical gold and silver. I understand people are saying, well, look, it's going down. Well, if you think from the criminal mindset, if they want something and they don't want you to want something, do you think they're going to make it something that seems very exciting to have? You know, they're going to downplay it. They're going to destroy it. And plus, if we know anything about the ultra-rich, now I'm talking about the elites, they don't like spending their money. So they want things as low as they can possibly get it. And they want the least amount of resistance. Because if gold and silver was going up like crazy and everybody was on the gold and silver bandwagon instead of the Bitcoin wagon, well, it would be a lot more challenging for them to get the physical gold and silver. So you have to think of it logically. If you see on the news, and I will thank Silver New Jack. If you haven't seen his channel, he made a video yesterday about showing how mainstream media is now starting to talk about Bitcoins. Trying to downplay gold and silver as well. To me, that suggests that the powers that be, who buy gold, countries buy gold, want you to be diverted to something else. So they created, or they may not even create it, but they are somehow involved, whether it's making profits or just the fact of the promotion of it, where they paid people to promote it, because it did come out of nowhere. Bitcoins was flatlined for over a year. Nobody was talking about it. And all of a sudden, it skyrockets that high, and the government isn't doing anything about it. That, to me, says, be careful. But I really think this is a setup to divert you. It's all magic tricks, hands and mirrors. You know, the trick is over here, but they want you looking over here. So while you're all starting to talk about the Bitcoins and spending all of your money on them, when it's already very high, the smarter investors, the ones that are knowing full-time, knowing in the future that physical gold and silver is going to be the way to go. Because if you think these dips are going to be permanent, you know, none of us have a crystal ball. I can't guarantee it. But I'll tell you this much. I'm not going to tell other people what to do with their money. I'm telling you what I'm doing with mine. And if you're a person that has very limited funds and can't buy an oil field or can't afford to buy a house, don't know enough about the stock market, don't trust the banks, not sure about a digital currency that is only popular for the past 2 months, physical gold and silver, especially silver, is very affordable right now. And I guarantee you, 5 years from now, even 10 years from now, there is no way these prices are going to be the same. And if there is a potential collapse of the dollar or all the world currencies, you now have something that is traded around the world. Now, another thing people are saying, one of the reasons that Bitcoins got so popular is because of what happened in Cyprus. Now, how many of you actually realistically think that tons of Cyprus people all of a sudden heard about Bitcoins, and when the bank shut down, they decided, let's invest? To me, even if they said that on mainstream media, I wouldn't buy it. Don't believe everything that you're told. Be individuals. Be free thinkers. And I see a lot of followers. And I understand that. But, you know, there's a reason why there are people called sheep. Because it only takes one shepherd to lead all of those sheep. And that shepherd could be incredibly good to his sheep. He could feed them well, give them plenty of space to roam around, give them plenty of water, protect them from evil creatures like wolves. But if he leads them to slaughter, in the end, it didn't matter how nice he was to them. Fattened them up for the kill. And they'll follow along, because where one goes, the other goes. And it's almost like you see a flock of birds flying in the air. And they're all following the same pattern, and they could be going in this direction, all of a sudden shoot in a direction that was totally opposite of where they were going. Thousands of them will all follow each other. Or you see a bunch of krill in the ocean, and a whole bunch of dolphins or whales are coming to eat them, and they are scooting all over, watching, thinking they're protected by following each other, and one gulp, and they're gone. If you think digital currencies are the wave of the future, unfortunately you're going to find out the hard way. They're going to go the way of the tulip. Now, if anybody doesn't know what that means, Tulips were actually used as currency back in the 1600s in Holland, and it lasted several years. And then one day, the bottom just dropped, and it became instantly worthless. So, I am sticking with my physical gold and silver. I'm going to continue to stick with physical gold and silver. And I see so many people, and there's still some haters out there, and I'm not even going to mention their names, because I'm pretty much over the whole drama thing with them, that they're saying, oh, it's going to be destroyed, it's going down. Silver hasn't even broken 26 yet. I understand there's a little downtrend here. But in the grand scheme of things, between 1981, here's the funny part. Most people are saying silver's flatlined, and it has flatlined for a little while. Well, anybody look at the chart of silver between around 1982 and about 2003? How many decades is that? It averaged between $3 and $8 for all of those years. And we're worried about a couple little months. That's all I can say about it. That's all I am going to say about it. There's going to be people who love gold and silver. There's going to be people who hate gold and silver. There's going to be people that are absolutely in love with Bitcoins. There's going to be people that will never trust them. Here I'm talking logically. I'm talking with reason. I'm not using emotion. You don't see me saying, I am so in love with gold and silver and there's nothing else in the world possible. If there was, I would be talking about it. If I found that Bitcoins was something that would last forever and defeat the system and was legitimate and something you could hold in your hand, something tangible, and people around the world had the confidence of it, I would be all in. I just don't see it. So I know people will say I don't understand. Like, you don't have to understand everything you don't like. You ever meet a person and you just didn't like them? And you didn't know why, but you just didn't trust that person, you didn't like them? Did you have to spend time getting to know that person, or did you just avoid them? That's kind of how I feel about all digital currencies. I'm leaving it at that. Whatever you want to comment on, that's up to you. You could support this, you could not like it. I'm not here to try and convince anybody to do anything. I'm trying to get people to think logically. There are plenty of people that make plenty of money by taking advantage of other people based on greed. Don't be one of those people. And I don't want to hear the people talking about how wonderful Bitcoins are while they are on top. Because those very same people, if the bottom dropped out from underneath them, will all disappear. And if you look on eBay, you will see how many people are profiting off of other people trying to get in on a bandwagon. That to me does not suggest stability. That means, to me, it says, it's making an incredible run that no one's ever seen before. Let's ride this wave as long as we can and make as much money as we can. That to me does not say long term. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Peace.